So that was fun. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to be talking today about education and employment for people with disability. A very, very important topic. This is powered by Ynmo. And we have our great gift. So we're going to just start right away. So the WHO, the World Health Organization, estimates that there is about 15% of the global population that have a disability, whether visible or hidden. That's about 1 billion people in the world. So we're going to dive right into education, the challenges and opportunities. Dr. Fahad, if you could speak about some of the challenges and potential opportunities in inclusive education.
Thank you, Manal. I think it's important to mention that the people with disability, they're around 15%. They're the largest minority group. And unfortunately, 90% of children with disability in so many countries, including developing countries, do not access education. Also, one important thing before also answering your question, I think increasing access to early screening and early intervention is very critical. The benefit of that, it's not limited to the children and the family, but also goes beyond to the society. And we have a huge body of literature suggesting that children with disability who attend early intervention, they do great at school and actually after that. Now on your question, challenges with education.
Could I just stop you for 1 second? Sure. When you say early intervention, just for the audience that doesn't know, what does early intervention mean?
Early intervention is comprehensive services provided to those with disability and also those at risk. These programs are family-centric programs, meaning that we empower family to know how to work with their children, to help them to interact with their children, to play, to socialize, and it's really family-centric, as I mentioned. Okay. Now, challenges with education. Internationally, challenges for persons with disability in education include limited to accessibility, lack of inclusive resources, and also social attitude. Here in the Kingdom and also neighboring countries, it's very similar. We also have issue with widespreading accessibility, addressing cultural perception, and also issue with teacher training. Now, how can we overcome these challenges? This is really requires also a comprehensive way to do that. And this includes first develop and enforce policy that ensure that education is for all, including those with disability. I mentioned earlier teacher training. I mean in-service and also pre-service training, because equipping these teachers with the necessary skills, they will be able to support these children to learn and also to be part of school. Also, of course, leveraging technology is also a very important way to overcome these challenges. And I think also awareness is very key, because I think so many people, they're not well aware what's the potential of people with disability. As I mentioned earlier, they are like the largest minority group, and I think we have to do a great work in terms of raising awareness, conducting awareness campaign, not only to the family, but also even people in the community. Also, collaboration is very important. What I mean by that is collaboration between educator, teacher, and other school personnel, and the parents, because providing a high-quality education requires a great involvement of the parents. Last but not least is financial support. These parents, they face many challenges, and one of them is really taking these children to receive care. So providing support to these family would really help them to access education and get additional services that their children need.
That's fantastic. So you've talked about leveraging technology. So we move to Robin. Education, leveraging technology, and then moving towards maybe employment, if you could speak to that.
Most certainly. First of all, assalamu alaikum. A pleasure to be here in Saudi Arabia, and especially engaging with the youthful audience here at the Miss Global Forum. For those of you who can perhaps hear me but not see me, I'm a white male in his early 30s wearing a blue suit, joined by Dr. Al Makoshi and Dr. Alnemary on stage. It's an amphitheater-like stage. The sun is set in Riyadh. So just for you to have an idea of where we are. To your point, moving from from education to employment of persons with disabilities, I think the key factor, regardless of our intention, is that we have to move at the speed of trust. So what does that mean, speed of trust? It means if you look at data today, by Accenture did a big global survey in the year, I think, 2022. And what they found out was that 60% of persons with disabilities felt excluded in the workplace. But if you asked executives if they had a workplace in a company in which persons with disabilities were confident to disclose their ability, to disclose their disability, to disclose the adaptive measures they needed, that executives were 30% more confident than the employees with disabilities themselves. So there's a gap between what executives think their working culture is and what persons with disabilities actually tell them. So how do we bridge that gap? And that is, I think, a key critical question. I think one of the answers is through networks. To understand, we have, as mentioned, 15% of the world's population which has a disability, and also, just as a note to the audience, all of you will acquire a disability in your lifetime. The question is only when. So with this significant population, all around the world, people are innovating for persons with disabilities. The disability itself is not the problem, the barrier is. All of you might have friends or relatives with a disability. Think of the last time you tried to go somewhere to a restaurant together and the hurdles you had to overcome for something as simple as having a coffee together. So what we need to understand is, where are people innovating? What solutions are out there, so we don't waste useful resources on trying to do it ourselves, but actually replicating. Copycat. This is the place to copycat. And we at the Zero Project, which is the international nonprofit foundation in Vienna, Austria, is exactly what we do. So we go all around the world and we find and share models that remove barriers for persons with disabilities. We want to know what people are doing in Saudi Arabia. We want to know what people in Bolivia, in Belgium, in the United States, in Japan are doing. Because we believe that if we're able to democratize access to the disability data, that money is saved, time is saved, and people can start to understand how to bridge that gap of trust. How do you set up models that bridge that gap of trust? And I can talk a bit more about some of examples, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, for now, I want to repeat that quote. We can move at the speed of trust. So you can think big, you can act now, but you can only go as far as you trust. So do we trust the system? Do we trust moving forward, or our coworkers, or whatever that may be? So if you could speak more maybe about, we can return back again, some of the misconceptions perhaps that people have when it comes to education or employment.
So I think there is a lot of misconception. One of them is that I think the way how disability has been defined, and I think so many people define it that way, is only limited to the visible disability, right? We're talking about, physical disability or maybe visual impairment, different hard of hearing. However, that definition is really not a very comprehensive one. Disability is also includes those invisible disability. And a lot of the invisible disability includes those with learning disability, those with ADHD, those with autism and other intellectual disability. So I think that's one of the misconception. And I think really capitalizing on these unique differences and also leveraging their contribution to the society, it's not only going to help them as individuals, rather like their family and also the society as a whole. A lot of people with disabilities, and we have great example, have contributed to so many large, company. For example, we were sitting last night with someone from France, and I think he's one of the speaker here, and he has an AI company. Basically, their solution is really to it's for museum. Basically, you can walk to you can talk to the work of art, and the lead of the engineers, and he managed a large team, is actually an individual with autism. Really, like, immediately, I told you, Manal, okay, let's talk to him, and also maybe we could talk about that example. So I think leveraging, what these people are capable of is very important, because a lot of people don't know like what they can do.
Absolutely.
I'd like to jump in and elaborate a bit on a concrete example, again, to prove the point. The solutions are out there. We don't have to invent them. The Trinity Centre for Persons with Intellectual Disabilities sits within Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. And they provide interns to some of the world's leading consultancy companies. Think Ernst & Young, EY. So these interns are really operating on the backbone of high-performance companies. Many of them taken over to full-time positions. For example, running onboarding at the European headquarters of EI. Imagine how many consultants go through that office. Important consultants with big clients, big contracts. And they're the first step, the onboarding. If you get the onboarding wrong, everything is toast. And they're given that responsibility, not because it's a charity, because they know it's good business, and they know also it's the right thing to do. It's both a human right and it's good business. That's one of the few areas you will find in your careers where you can do something good and also make money. And the data proves it. If you look at the World Bank, companies led by executives who are focused on disability engagements have 2.9 times more sales, so almost 3 times as much sales, and 4.1 times the profit. So if you're thinking about, especially the young crowd here in the audience, if you're thinking about where do I want to go on my career track, really watch and follow companies which are not only putting on paper sound disability, inclusion, employment measures, but really following through, because they're going to be more creative, they're going to be more resilient and more adaptive, because they're led and managed by persons with disabilities, which by design, because of the barriers in society, are more creative, more adaptive, and more resilient, because they have to be. The disability, again, as I mentioned, is not the problem. It's the barriers in society. It starts with something as simple as small, will I be able to find a restroom in the coffee house? And it goes all the way up to, will this school accept me? Will this classroom accept me? Will this university accept me? Will this employer accept me? And I believe we can move into the right direction if we utilize networks, and I'll leave it at that.
Wonderful. I think everyone in the audience, both physically here and those online, can remember the time with COVID, when it was hard to access. Maybe you didn't have a computer, maybe you didn't have Wi-Fi, it wasn't strong enough, you were in the house. Those are examples of barriers. And you were feeling what many people with disabilities may feel when it comes to employment, when it comes to maybe going to a restaurant, as you mentioned, education. So this is something that maybe we can, or we have that memory, that feeling, if you still have it. If we can maybe leave, we have the majority of Saudi as a youthful population. They are very enthusiastic. There is amazing creativity. So what is a message, perhaps, that you could give? Fahad, we'll start with you.
Definitely, as I mentioned earlier, the percentage of people with disability is 15%. They're the largest minority group. And if we do not empower these people, we're not only hindering their contribution, but also we're hindering also the contribution of their parents, because disability does not affect only the person with disability. It affects his family and also as a society. So empowering all individuals, including persons with disability, is very critical. And I think empowering them and also leveraging the set of skills that they have will also help us to move forward, and that's that.
Okay. To act, go ahead.
My takeaway to the Saudi youth here and also behind the screen is, one, you can actually realize you will have the chance to do this. All of you will at some point in your life have a job interview or several job interviews. Maybe some of you even have one coming up soon. In that job interview, a moment will come where the interviewer will ask you, do you have any other questions? This question has been asked to me a couple times in my lifetime. There is your opportunity to ask them, could you please tell me more about what you're doing in terms of employing persons with disabilities? Tell me about your inclusive employment practices. And then pay attention very closely to what they say. And you will hear if they mumble, if they're drawing blanks, or if they're giving you a concrete answer. And if you find a good answer there and you do your research, you will end up working at companies which we will consider cutting edge, ahead of the curve, better than the competitors. The companies, the services and products you might like, Apple, Nike, you name it, these are the companies which have been able to overcome that gap of trust because they've not only put measures into place on paper, but they've put them into practice. And word spreads. If you hire a person with disability and you give them dignity, you give them agency, and you give them the opportunity to be seen, they will become your biggest advocates, they will become your biggest marketing department, because they will tell others, this is a disability-forward company, and that is the future I would like to believe you want to be part of. So ask that question in your job interview, the time will come and you will have the opportunity.
So I'm going to change. Oh, thank you. We have the Think Big, Act Now. I'm going to add one part to it. So think big, act now, be inclusive in all that you do. Thank you to our speakers, and thank you to Mr. Ahmed, our Arabic sign language translator. Thank you.